Good morning and welcome to our April 28th edition of our biweekly or Gentian update. So today I'd like to start with a gratitude for the most important person in the world to me, which is my mother. Today is the day that my grandmother gave birth to her. So we celebrate that wonderful day and with many flowers, many cards, gifts, and expressions of love throughout the day. So we have a special fondness of today for April 28th every year because it turns out it seems like her birthday happens on the same day every year. So that's a shout out to my mom if she's listening today. I wanted to bring that up this morning. And welcome to the Gentian Update. And this is where we share things that right now are hot topics that are really top of mind right now as well. So what we'll do today is I want to throw this over to housekeeping before I skip right over it like I'm time to time apt to do. So if we can just talk about the more important things here, the housekeeping, the things we're doing that you should know, let me go ahead and turn that over right now to our wonderful team.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. I just want to take a minute to go through a couple of things with you before the guys hop into the core content. Later this morning at 11 a.m., we have our second Health and Wealth Series webinar with nutritionist Michelle. So hopefully you're able to join us. If you haven't registered, a link was emailed out where you can register for that Zoom. On Friday is Zach's birthday. So if you have a chance, please wish him a happy birthday. As a reminder, keep an eye out for any emails that come through from either the Gentian inbox or one of our team members to schedule your quarterly review meeting via Calendly. And then also in the next few days, keep an eye out for our May happenings email with everything that's been going on during the month of May. And then finally, our next bi-weekly update will be on Wednesday, May 12th. So that's it for me. I will send it back to Chris.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Peter. I guess in the lines of Zach is a big runner, and actually I like to treat every day like I'm preparing for a marathon tomorrow. I load up on carbs, I make sure I get a ton of rest, and I don't run. So that's how I spend every day preparing for a huge marathon tomorrow. I thought some of you'd appreciate that. I think I stole it from one of you as clients, but I appreciate that. I know Zach is a runner. He runs like 150 miles a day. It's kind of rare that we get him here in the office because he's always out running. And eventually, I think he's going to be like Forrest Gump. He's going to say, I'm done running. At any rate, no, I'm really honored that it's his birthday this week and wonderful that he's a part of our team. Going big. So the first thing I'll do is a little bit of gratitude for myself in my expression. It's my mother today. Obviously, it's her day. Without her, obviously, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be together necessarily in this practice. I wouldn't have daughters. The great things in my life all started with her. So I look to the point of singularity and really what she's done for me. So I really appreciate that. That's my gratitude for the day. How about yourself, Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. Great to be with you all today. My gratitude goes to my dad's birthday is tomorrow, actually. Turned 71 years old, and I turned 41 in May as well. And so there's a 30-year gap between us, and there was a 30-year gap between him and what would be my grandpa as well. So I missed a 30-year gap with my son, Parker. It's 31 years. I missed out on it. I screwed up the tradition in our family. But more importantly also is the stories you share with us. The vaccine has allowed you, those who have shared with me that you've gotten the vaccine, it seems to be, it allows you to walk more confidently out there in the world right now. And I think that's a really wonderful thing, opening up, going to Florida, Arizona, things of that nature. So I'm just grateful for the happiness of people, because I think that being out with people really is changing our mindset. It's changing our happiness. It's changing our outlook as well right now. So that's what I'm grateful for.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. How about yourself, Zach? I mean, you got to, let me do this. My gratitude to your dad as well for having you for his birthday, so that we can share our wonderful practice with Ken as well. So without your dad, you wouldn't be here as well. How about yourself, Zach? Friday, obviously celebrating your birthday, but what are you grateful for?
Thank you, Chris. Well, first, grateful for both your mom, Chris, and your dad, Ken. You guys, for them giving birth to you, right, and providing you to this world. You guys are extremely important to me, so thank you, and gratitude to them as well. For myself, I was able to take a little time off recently, which, as most of you know, that's hard for me to do, but it was just a great refresher, and just was filled with gratitude the entire time for you, for the Gentian family. And really the greatest gift, really reflecting back on it, is most of the time when people come back from vacation, it's, oh man, I don't want to go back to work, but it was actually the complete opposite for me. I couldn't wait to wake up this morning and get in here and be with each of you guys and be with our team. So that's my gratitude for today.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zach. Well, we appreciate that as well. So, excuse me. A couple of things that I appreciate and maybe depreciating the very strong allergies that are occurring right now over the past week too for most of us who actually have a little bit of an inconvenience because of those. But interestingly, as I go forward, the things that are hot topics for us today and things that we have, it's very, very interesting to see here. Give me one moment. I've been requested to. There we go. Really, really interesting to see all the different questions and things that come through in our meetings and discussions. Right now, some of the hot topics are tax law changes, which tend to change every few seconds, I think, as you've seen. If you turn around, you're seeing lots of proposals and you're seeing a lot of discussion about the proposal, and then a lot of potential spending bills coming in as well. That's a lot of questions about how we're going to pay for it. A lot of RMD questions, required minimum distributions, have come back in. So a lot of people are asking the questions, okay, now that I have those, what do I do with those again? So if you're over 70 and a half, and that's over 70 and a half, remember that's different than the required minimum distribution age. If you're over 70 and a half, you can actually use your RMD as a qualified charitable distribution to your charities. And there can be some strong tax benefits from that as well, but that's one-on-one basis. But that's something that's been coming up quite a bit as well. How do I use those? Or remember the QCDs. And remember last year they got rid of RMDs. And then also concomitantly with that is going to be conversions. Should I be converting to Roth? Should I not? How are the new tax laws going to affect me? And it's really hard to predict what's going to happen with tax laws, especially when it's the future. So there's a lot of proposals. That's all interesting, right? But I think as we look at this here, those are some coming in. Another one as well is going to be small cap value in the recovery of global real estate, but also just the value cycle. The cycle has turned or flipped, people are saying. So it's interesting. And people will say the cycle has turned from growth to value until it doesn't. I've seen this time and time again. And people ask me, hey, how long is this going to last? Well, it'll last until it ends. So these are ambiguous answers, but it's the truth. So I don't try to frustrate you. I just try to give you the truth. So when we do this and people ask me questions about the future, I'm going to tell you, I don't know what it's going to be, but I do know what we'll do when we get there. So that's how we view it. Another, like as Ken mentioned as well, some of the big ones that we have are lately vaccine discussions around that, the comfortability people are feeling. Ken mentioned that very well. Another big one is travel in the fall. I'm going to call it the coiled spring of recreational travel. This coiled spring has been compressed for about a year and a half. A lot of you do a ton of it. Go to Priceline, go to these other stocks, and you're going to start to find people can't take cruises and all. People can't go to foreign countries, but they are ready to go somewhere and do something. And that spring has been coiled and pressed. When that's released, I think we're going to see a massive amount of travel across the United States, at least from what we're hearing as well. Another one we hear is inflation, a big one about inflation, what's happening with it, what should I do? And as you've seen our planning before, to react to the interim things going on, inflation, politics, and others, on a long-term plan, the toughest thing to do is to do nothing, to stay with the plan. You guys have been fantastic at it. There's a few of you who are on the fringe, but most all of you do follow that. So with these things that are occurring, inflation and other ideas, or just discussions of them, we talk about inflation before it comes. We hope it doesn't come. You see the price of homes, you see the price of healthcare, and it may come. And then a big question too, and there's a lot more than this, but in the end, should I spend it all down? I'm inheriting money from a parent. I've got more money. This has been more. I've got more money than I'm ever going to need. What do I do with it? Excuse me. What's responsible to do with it? How should I give this away? And should I be giving some while living? And again, that's a great discussion for each one of us on your meetings as well. Another couple of questions are Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and I'm going to call it blockchain. We had a wonderful gentleman talk. I might try to get him to talk to you guys directly from a group that we were on Thursday. It's Convergence with a great friend, Lee Brower, and a great group that we have called Thrivers. But Pete is one of the most foremost experts on cryptocurrency, been in it for over 10 years, which sounds funny, but that's about all you could be in it. A 10-year veteran of the cryptocurrency industry. And he said this, he's seen 4 85% corrections in the 10 years he's been in it. So if you want to know what volatility is, own cryptocurrency. So just as an FYI. But with that, why don't I turn, and I just wanted to give you some of the bigger picture things we're seeing here. Let me turn this over to Zach to just touch a little bit about the markets, and then I'll have back into a couple of items that I'd like to just discuss today.
Sounds great, Chris. Thank you. I have a couple quick updates here for you today. We'll just go through where the markets are at year to date, like we normally do. A couple asset class updates that Chris mentioned. a couple cautionary things to take a look at, fixed income update, and then just a few upcoming items that we're watching here this week as well. So on the market side of things, S&P 500 year to date, up 11.47%. The NASDAQ, which tends to lean a little bit more towards technology, up 9.33%. And the Dow Jones, 11.04% year to date. And the one cautionary thing to take a look at with the Dow Jones right now that we're hearing is that be careful of the large numbers on the news. As of market close yesterday, the Dow Jones is 33,984. So a normal movement in the market, either up or down of 3%, is now over 1,000. So on the news, you'll hear 1,000 points up, 1,000 points down. Going to make it seem like there's potentially a lot more volatility, both upward and downward. So just keep an eye out for that and beware of it as well. Asset class wise, we've been talking quite a bit over the last quarter and even extending into 2020 about small cap. As of market close yesterday, the Russell 2000 growth, 9.28% positive on the year. The Russell 2000 value, up 24.35%. So extremely interesting to take a look at. And Chris mentioned that earlier. And global real estate, which if you remember was one of the worst performers in 2020, is actually up 16.10%. So that's why we continue to have it. Don't diversify out of it. And another thing that we've been hearing lately to be aware of is just caution chasing returns. We mentioned this last time and we try to do it as consistently as we can. We never know which one of these asset classes are going to perform better when, but that's why we stay diversified and own them all. On the fixed income side, really quick, we get a lot of questions about inflation and different yields. On the 1 year, the current yield is 0.07% on the Treasury. 5 year is 0.81%, and the 10 year is 1.57%. A question along yields that we've received quite a bit is, with my money that's just sitting in the bank, how can I get a little bit better return or yield? It's a great question. We've been exploring it very heavily. CD rates, when we're looking at them, and if you've looked at them as well, you can tell that they're pretty low. 1 to 2 year, we've been seeing 0.5% to 0.75%, 0.75%. Something that we've been hearing a lot more often recently is getting yield through a fixed annuity or indexed annuity. Just be very careful if someone approaches you with that from the bank or another advisor. It may apply to you, it may make sense, but most of the time it locks you in for a set period of time. And if you need that outside money in the bank for emergency funds or savings or a short-term purchase, it may not make sense at this time to try to chase that yield. So just something we've been working on and taking a look at for you. And just upcoming this week, this is a very big week of earnings from some of the largest companies in the world. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how that plays out and how some of these companies have performed as far as their earnings go. With that, I will hand it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Zach. As one of those big earnings release yesterday was actually UPS, and apparently shipping is way up from small businesses, they claim. So that actually may be a good precursor to economic activity. So those of you who are at home clicking, UPS says thank you. Actually, a lot of it's too from the vaccine delivery. They've been a big delivery of 200 million doses of the vaccine. So that's a good one. You know, it's interesting. So it's spring and there's a lot of stuff to do, right? So this reminds me of a great saying that I say, what do you call the day when you finally do all the chores and work that you let pile up? Tomorrow. So for those of you who want to do that, talk to your families, and that's tomorrow. Anyway, I want to touch here. Remember last time we talked about how our opinions are always valid. Have you this week seen anybody who had expressed an opinion and you viewed it as that? Rather than arguing with it, letting them go, oh, that's interesting. Remember, you don't have to argue with an opinion when it's somebody else's. That's theirs. They can keep it. It doesn't mean it has to become yours. So it's a great one. I know I have, since teaching that even last week and the week before, seen that many, many times. I now let people express their opinion without saying anything on the other side. Just listening, going, that's interesting. This was a great saying this week I learned as well. A person wrapped up in themselves make a very small package. Maybe that's to do with UPS. Maybe that all comes together. But I saw that saying. It has nothing to do with anything, but that's how I operate sometimes. So what I'd like to do today is just express you to a quick question before I even hop over to Ken here in the planning. But let me ask this question. Have you ever gotten into a mess You ever done something maybe that is really bad or wrong, and even worse, instead of admitting it, you try to justify it? Have you ever seen that happen to somebody else? The vulnerability would say, yes, it's happened to me. And you all know it. You can all remember the story. It's been said that how strong we are in our wrongness shows a lack of humility, a lack of vulnerability. So you try to make it seem right, even though you really knew it was wrong. You know, later in life, we get a chance to reflect on it. We get a chance to see those moments in a different light. And when you do, those mistakes often become our greatest teachers. Even better, even if it's only just, don't do that again. What's interesting is this beautiful thing of humility is that we can turn a mess into a message for ourselves, for you, for your kids, for your families. So don't look at messes as, oh my gosh, that's the end of it. That was horrible. That's it. Actually, messages and mistakes become our biggest teachers. We actually will look at them as some of the biggest turning points in our life. But this is really, for us, how we offer perspective. It's a core philosophy of what we do. If somebody else has made a mess before they come in here or whatever it is, or if we have, we want to make sure we share that with you in perspective. So for us, I'm going to call that the mess to the message. So whenever you look at a mess, look for the message inside of it. So mess to message is our story for today. With that, let me turn that over to Ken for planning.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Hopefully I don't make a mess of the planning right now here. So
You're the opposite of that.
yeah, exactly. But, you know, to piggyback onto some of Chris's points and Zach's points, we look at the Dow Jones and we go through a normal correction. We've talked to you guys about this before, about a 10 to 15% correction in the market is a very normal thing from year to year. And when you look at that, you start to put the points to that on the Dow Jones. We're talking somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 points on the Dow Jones, which is a very, very common correction. So again, it's a roller coaster ride. Don't jump off when it's clicking up, when we're starting to ascend. Don't jump off when we're going down temporarily as well. So there's a little piece of wisdom there, hopefully some fundamentals. Also, our friends at Clarios and JCI, Johnson Controls, I was talking to a friend and a client recently, and they said that marine batteries are up 39% from last year. So there is a high demand. There is a pent up demand for what is happening in the world right now. Like Chris mentioned, that coiled spring, it's almost in every category that's out there pretty much. I mean, home audio, marine batteries, cabinetry, you name it. I mean, travels, everything. It's a coiled spring right now. So what I wanted to do today is, yep, go ahead. Chris.
Can I ask you a question on that? So does that mean that in 2 to 3 years, there'll be a plethora of boats to buy used?
I hope so. I know some of you are looking for fishing boats and pontoon boats for your properties, and maybe in 2 or 3 years there'll be a heck of a deal to be had out there. That's great. So the inherited IRA 2020 and beyond, it's a new rule that went into place a couple of years ago. The IRS is flip-flopping on us a little bit right now, and we're trying to figure out which direction they're going to take. Originally on the inherited IRA, for anybody that inherited an IRA in 2020 or 2021 and beyond going forward now, obviously, there was a 10-year rule where the inherited IRA had to be emptied out at the end of the 10th year. Then all of a sudden the IRS said, hey, I'm not quite sure that's what we meant. And no, by the way, we might have to take out yearly distributions for those 10 years. And now I just read an article last night at wealthmanagement.com that's saying that, oh, maybe the IRS misinterpreted their interpretation. And maybe it might be back to the 10-year rule. So again, we just bring this to your attention. We are so on this. We get headline updates on this all the time from Ed Slott, who is the foremost guru in IRA planning in basically the world. So we get really up-to-date information. So we will keep you abreast of things that are going on, and that could potentially affect the planning and your overall scenario as well. So what I want to do really quickly here is I want to bring up a couple of the proposals that have been happening that are kind of on the table by the new presidency. And I just want to share a few pieces with you here. I'm going to go pretty quickly. Some of it pertains to us. Some of it is more about just some other different rules here. So you can see the American Families Plan. It's a proposal right now. Came out $1.8 trillion. Tax hikes basically are going to help fund these programs that are out there. Universal preschool for 3 and 4 year olds. Offer 2 years of free community college for all Americans, including Dreamers as well. paid family national or paid family leave. That's a huge one, right? Those who have families, sometimes being at home for only a week or two is not enough to be with your newborn child. Increased Pell Grants, and a lot of different things. Here's one at the bottom here, making the Affordable Care Act tax credits included in the American Rescue Plan permanent. That's a huge one for some of you who are retiring before 65, which is Medicare. So anybody who retires before 65, we have to have the health insurance conversation, and that's really what that means to you as well there. So as I skip through here, a couple of different ones here. Income tax rates top at 39.6 from 37. Taxable capital gains as well as regular income at 39.6 or higher for households making more than $1 million. Step up in basis says for gains over $1 million. Again, we're heavily watching the step up in basis because it is a huge planning tool that we do talk to you guys about as far as step up in basis and basically realizing gains, but without having to pay taxes on them. So we'll see where that one goes as well. And lastly here, the American Rescue Plan Act for 2021. This one was signed March 11, 2021, brought to our attention by our Medicare partners that we work with. And really some of the highlights include relief for medical insurance premiums. There's COBRA continuation extensions for those who have been affected as well. And also a special enrollment period for the marketplace coverage, which some people call marketplace or the Affordable Care Act. So these are things that we have a keen eye on and a close eye on. And again, when things change and it pertains to your situation, we'll certainly let you know and we'll guide you through that scenario. With that being said, I'll hand it back over to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. Great. I think you see tax law changes on a constant basis, and even in interpretation of their own laws. I think it's great for you to keep up and keep us all posted that. And one thing that we do here is we want to look at how that applies to you. There's a ton of proposals going on, but we don't go a lot through proposals a lot of time with you, except in forums like this, until they become real. We just want to keep you abreast of what's going on if you haven't read it as well. So thank you, Ken. That is super, super helpful as well. One of the big things we're also seeing is a lot of people inheriting money, younger people, parents, passing away. And this isn't something that people typically plan for because it's the one thing they say, hey, my parents are pretty well to do, but I really don't want to consider that in my retirement planning. But now we're getting to the age where some of their parents are 85, 90 and maybe passing on, and that money is passing to them. So it's a big part of it. I've inherited money. What do I do with that? That's a big question that's coming up. So we have a plan it, live it, and give it. Don't get us wrong. We also have an inherit it kind of a module in how we work as well and what to do with it. So it's an interesting thing. It's not talked about. Nobody says I want to rely on it, but I want you to know you can rely on us to help you when that happens. So just as an FYI, that's a big portion we've been seeing lately as we go through. One thing I want to just touch base is the outward mindset. And I'm not going to go through it heavily now. I'll probably talk next time about it, but it's something I was introduced to in a great book this week. But if you look at myself, just me being vulnerable about this, I've really turned an inward mindset when it comes to my time during coronavirus. I think that's beginning to change with a lot of you. But right now, if somebody asks me to do something after work, it's almost like, that's preposterous. When I'm done with work, I go home and I do these things at the home because we haven't had anything else we've really done outside that for a year. So I'd say right now, be careful. See if you can flip those arrows outward. One of the biggest things I'll also share probably with you on the next one. There's about 115 things, again, I want to share. But a big one we're going to talk about is, do you create? And this was in Jeff Bezos' letter to, which I'm sure you all read, his letter to shareholders about a week ago. He said, does a company create more than it consumes? We flipped that around here at our team to say, do we create more than we consume? I flipped it to myself. Do I create more for the world than I consume? These are great questions. I'm not going to answer them now. I just wanted to throw them out to you for those who are here today, because those are interesting pieces as we find it. A couple of things going on, I think we did mention is it comes to markets and research and planning. I was reading a story from a gentleman who has 10 PhDs. It's a group and a team that a lot of the experts go to for research. And somebody said this, beyond 2 PhDs, the additional PhDs are a subtraction from their ability to function in the normal world. I heard that from a Nobel Prize winner on the small cap theory, really funny, but this guy literally has 10 PhDs and the group does. And they were saying, be very careful with all this research. You read this whole article, 30 minutes you get in, and it says basically mean reversion is going to happen. It means that things haven't done well for a long time, and they normally do say 7%, but the last 10 years they've done 4%. They're probably going to do well to get back to where they should be. So this incredibly long discussion, very complex, to basically say that if things underperform, they'll probably recover. If things overperform, they'll probably not do as well. So basically, again, it's a ton of research. People pay a ton of this for this money, but it's something that we bring, Ken brings, Zach brings, the whole team brings to you as well. But I thought that was quite interesting as with all of that, all this to do and really about nothing as we went through it. A couple of things as well here I just want to touch on, if I may, is in the future loop. I know I typically scat over the future loop, but here's 2 or 3 things. There's a new CRISPR tool, so this is the future, but there's a new CRISPR tool which switches genes on and off. Why is this important? If you remember what CRISPR is, CRISPR, if this is a gene that you have and there's a bad spot right here, CRISPR will go in and snip it, but that snips the wires. And when you snip the wires on electricity, you really can't repair those, especially not in the body. What the new one is actually a CRISPR tool that just turns genes on and off because there's almost little switches in them as well. Why is that important? Because now they can actually do gene editing with a purpose, and if there's a mistake with it, they can actually turn it back on. So really interesting to look at some of these. These are huge, huge, huge breakthroughs. This is happening every day. I don't give you all of them, but a couple more this week was quantum teleportation. So teleportation, you've heard of it, you've seen it in science fiction. They're actually creating molecules, and Einstein hated this, by the way. They're creating parallel molecules that when something happens on this one, it changes over here. So essentially what they're saying is the properties of this particle are directly reflected in this particle, which is they're saying is a property of teleportation because there's nothing connecting them, but they're actually mirroring each other exactly. So they're really looking at how can we use teleportation for things like travel, like if I want to go from here across the street without walking. I'm just kidding, but we've all seen it happen on Willy Wonka. We're just trying to make it happen here in the real world. Another one is electronic driverless cars that actually hoover up all the extra CO2, that actually vacuum out the CO2. They're going to be in production in 2023. A company from China will be producing them, but they're actually producing them that reduce the CO2 output of the cars that are still combustible. So it's interesting, not just zero, but they're actually a net negative, which is kind of cool. There's a new bacteria-based strategy, also genetic. There's like 3 strategies going on, and a metallurgic strategies to chemotherapy and killing cancer, and they're showing great promise. What they're basically doing is you're going through bacteria, and it actually is a delivery method to turn your immune system on to kill diseases and cancer. It's an absolute groundbreaking piece. Also is the metallurgic ability to deliver exactly where you need it, and then they reflect a laser or something through, and it will only happen here. So the chemotherapy we feel in our body that might, kill everything good actually is really targeted now as well. There's a ton going on with that right now. Incredible discoveries, and hopefully they'll be applicable to us soon as we may face some of those different issues. The last one here is Apple glasses. I've told you about augmented reality. When you put on glasses, the cool thing about them, these augmented reality glasses can turn anything that you have into a touch screen. So it's kind of crazy. If you're touching certain things on the screen and you're looking through this and this is your glasses, literally you can see anything, a movie, start, stop, remote controls. It's incredible things, and Apple's going to be producing these, I think, coming out in 2022, maybe late this year, but it's one of the biggest things they think will revolutionize both healthcare, our perception of the world, and do you really need a big movie screen in your home? Because you can put on glasses and essentially see them. So with Future Loop, there's more. There's a lot going on right now with driverless and also with drones. But those are a few of the highlights, if you will, from this last week. I know we've reached our time right now. I think the last thing I'd kind of like to leave you with is really looking at a sense of gratitude to you guys, because you guys really we've had some meetings lately. We did one of our first days where we tried to do 1 or 2 meetings outside, because of course it was supposed to be 81 degrees a day. And with our test day that was supposed to be phenomenal, we sat outside and it was about 55, pretty decent, but kind of windy. So it was a little chilly. We put some blankets out there. And then by the end of it, it was 48 degrees and the wind was howling. So much for being by the lake and it being 81. I know you yesterday who were in Milwaukee at 80 degrees, but we had 48 degrees recorded at about 3 o'clock. And coming in from the appointment, kind of shivering, that was great. That was fantastic. So we realized we've got to find a heating system outside that can also stop the wind, which was kind of an interesting one. So we're moving toward that. We're doing some tests and figuring those things out. There's a lot of things that we need that are actually on back order big time, just because if you're in the construction industry, ordering steel, wood, heaters, really, really, really back ordered. So a couple things that we've seen as well. But with that, this has been a fantastic week. We say stick around today at 11 o'clock for the health and wellness program. You'll see that hosted by us, myself, David, and Tim Fries, and our team here as well. And what we've done as well, and you've seen this for a lot of our clients, you now have access to Michelle. directly. So through us, we've got her on retainer for you to be able to ask your diet questions directly to her. So if you have something, you're out in the grocery store, you have a question about this, feel free to use her. We decided to bring her on as a resource for you. That is the live it. We don't just want you to plan it and have a bunch of money. We want you to be healthy during it. So as part of it, we're looking at innovative ways to help you. So use that. Use this resource. She's fantastic, super easy to follow. She'll follow up, give you great advice on the stuff that you need for health and for diet, which most of us have questions on. And there's a lot of shifting in diet. Probably the thing I saw in a TED Talk recently that was most disappointing. We're all looking for that diet that everybody should do. Everybody should do, right? What they have found though, is the diet that's perfect for you is a diet that's unique to you. So we're all of us looking for what's the keto diet, may be great for Ken, maybe horrible for Zach. It's personalized. So with that, we'll figure out more ways as we go along, but stick around for that as well. What I'd love to say, Gentian Retirement, we're here with Gentian Retirement, we're here helping you plan it, live it, and give it. Thank you on behalf of the team here at Gentian. Stay safe, stay positive, and be grateful. With that, have a great week.